trying to get one video out that I've tried to get out for 3 or 4 days, and I might want to look at that and say, should I get this video out? And it's a reaction video from Jenna Miscavige. And when I look at the video, I feel like I have so much to say, and I do want to get it out because it does say a lot. And I don't mean good or bad, you know. Anyway, a lot of things have been going on, as you guys know. And I don't know how this video is going to come out, but I'm going to go with it. We'll see if I put it up. So, I have said before, I understand who Fancy, Maselli, April Johns is. Okay. And when I say that, I mean that I truthfully understand her aspirations and where she wanted to go and had dreams of going and worked towards going.
Toddy, worked? Fancy? Fancy? Fancy worked? Fancy worked?
I get it. She wanted Hollywood. She wanted either to be a singing star because she's got, those that don't know, she does have some sort of streaming thing with her songs on it. I assume she wrote the songs. I don't know. All the songs, no offense, they kind of all sound the same. I've had that problem with my own songs. It took a long time for that to change for me. So, you know, when I say that I have compassion or I understand and I have sympathy or empathy, I know what I'm talking about. I really do. I do. But I've written so many things, and I used to send them out back in the day before there were word processors even. And when you made a mistake on one line, you know, whiteout wasn't what you wanted to send to people. It was so hard to honestly, and I didn't type near as well as I do now. I used to pay somebody to type my scripts. And I remember my first scripts went out on a yellow legal pad, handwritten, and it was to Fawcett Majors Productions, and it was when I was in the witness protection program. And the script was called Something More Than Money, and it was basically about a family that had a lot of money and they lost it all, and they had to learn how to deal with not having money. And around the same time, that Dick Van Dyke movie came out, which was kind of like that. And I mean, I wrote mine before I ever saw that Dick Van Dyke movie, that's true, but I don't want to say that somebody took my writing, because that's not true. I got my script back basically in the same envelope saying that they don't accept unsolicited material. So I know what it feels like to have a gatekeeper decide whether you have enough talent to make it through the doors of Hollywood. And what I found was there was movies out there that I thought were terrible, and then there were movies out there that I thought were brilliant, and I wish I would have written them. And then I would write something, and I would say, damn, if I didn't write this, I wish I would have written it, you know? So, and then there were things that I wrote that I was like, yeah, this needs a bunch of rewrites, or we're going to trash it. Anyway, I know what it is to want something and work towards it. And I understand how Fancy would have reached out to the Blanchard family and said, hey, listen, I have this experience with Hollywood. Now, maybe she embellished some of the things she said. Now, you have to remember, Fancy at that time, because we can see a past with Fancy, that she was always looking for the next thing, for the next thing, for the next thing. But I think Hollywood has always been something that's been really precious to her heart, something she's always wanted, because that's a very consistent thing, and there's not a lot of consistencies, to be honest, when it comes to Fancy. So she had the opportunity to make something of a very unique story, which was the Gypsy Rose story. I remember the Adam Walsh, when Adam Walsh, and you guys know that's my hometown, Hollywood, Florida. I didn't want to write a screenplay or a movie about that, but I wrote an article about it, and it was a good article. And Parade was a little like a flyer in the Miami Herald. It was a magazine type thing. And I think that they put in a part of it or an excerpt of it because something compelled me to write that. Later in life, I met somebody who had Parkinson's disease, and it was a young woman who was probably in her 30s or 40s at the time. I was younger than that. And everything she did was kind of backwards, like no lie. She walked backwards in order to go anywhere. Her brain had her go backwards, and I found that fascinating. It was so fascinating, and I thought, God, there's a story there. There's a story there. How does she do that? How does she feel when she's out in public? I worked with her. That was when I worked for, I was in New Hampshire, and I worked at one of the it was the only airline catering company at the Manchester airport. This was in the, I don't know, late 80s, maybe mid 80s, I don't remember. And it was only for a short period of time, because then from there I moved to D.C. and ultimately started working in the jail in Arlington. So I got to know this one, and I thought, wow, I could do a movie of the week. I could write a movie of the week about this woman, because just the struggle, just what it feels like to have people looking at her and everything she could speak fine. She shook a lot, but she walked backwards. So she kind of did. We didn't have a conveyor belt at that airport. We had one in Fort Lauderdale, and that's where I had started doing that line of work. Was when everybody got their food, on the airplane. I was the coordinator for Braniff and Midway Airlines, their beverage coordinator back in the day. But at first I started with food, and then I got that my promotion was to beverage coordinator, liquor and beverage coordinator for Braniff, Midway, and Piedmont Airlines. But we had a conveyor belt. Fort Lauderdale Airport, big airport. Manchester Airport, small airport, no conveyor belt, just a bunch of the trays, and then you put stuff in them, and you'd walk a line. Everybody would walk a line one way. She walked the same way, she just did it backwards. I forget her name, but I see her as plain as day. And I really wanted to write a story, her story, about that. And I remember that I had asked her if I could, and I think she said that I could. It never came into fruition. I ended up again moving. But I understand wanting to take opportunities and tell a story, and especially if you see it through your eyes. Your eyes are very unique, and you want to show the public through your eyes. So I understand why somebody wants to do that. I've been there, done that, okay? The problem is when the story's not important anymore. You know what I'm saying? And it becomes more about doing it for reasons that are monetary gain, and see, once you put money over the human being, everything is for sale. Everything goes out the window. And that's what I think happened with Fancy here. I don't think Fancy ever really cared about the story. This is my opinion. Because Fancy was involved, and I've got to do a video on this, but I want to research it more. It appears that Fancy was involved in an MLM, and those are nasty. We all know that, They're pyramid type schemes. You have people work under you, and that's another pattern that it seems with Fancy, is that She just is the idea person, and maybe some of her ideas aren't very good either. You could spout shit out of your mouth and not really know what the hell you're talking about, and then demand everybody to go and do that. And whether it be because you have an enthusiastic personality or you're a bully, you're getting a bunch of people that you are having control over without even caring about them. Because another pattern is everybody works for Fancy, but she doesn't pay anybody. Like, why? And in the meantime, you haven't, as far as I see, haven't received any monies from any of the documentaries that I haven't seen either. And so therefore nobody's been paid, but everybody's worked. And you treat them poorly. Now that we see. We saw how you were willing to sell Nicholas and gaslit his dad. We saw, and you shared with us, how Gypsy Rose fired you. And you said it was because you found something in a story that wasn't true and you wanted to expose the truth. But the timeline with you reaching out to have Dawn infiltrate the non-infiltration Nicholas group that we've already proven that you're a part of, that you started for entertainment and alleged purposes only, or alleged and entertainment purposes only, around basically the same timeline where the Blanchards, or Gypsy at least, was sick of you. We see the conversations you had with Ken and the conversations he had with you, and we could see why you guys would communicate with each other, and we could see why Gypsy would be a common interest among, because those are birds of a feather. And you've acted like somebody else. You've acted all high and mighty, but you haven't been. You've acted like you've handled yourself in a respectful way, caring about the people around you, but you haven't. You've used the people around you, including accusing one of kidnapping you. And then you insult your audience by trying to make them believe it. You ask for money, and then the next day you insult and yell at people because you ask for more and they ask why. Now, this you could see. Basically everything in this video that I'm talking about has been proven, and you could see. Or you can go to Cutting Board Dawn, 1980 Millennial. Who else is doing shit? Starlight. Anybody that you basically had any kind of relationship with. I mean, Morbid, Fancy. There is no lack of content creators showing you your content and how bad it looks. So when we ask you to step away and move aside, we do that because you've been in the way and you've stopped things. You have actually caused things. You again, Fancy, April, you again are partially responsible for the celebrityism that Gypsy Rose Blanchard has right now. Besides being responsible for Nick's narrative that's going on, Dee Dee's narrative of what's going on, you helped perpetuate all of that because you weren't really interested in telling the story. You took people at their word and you would have continued onward. You would have continued onward. But you weren't doing anything for them. See, you didn't have anything to show them. You didn't have any work done. Where's the camera crew? Like, so you were going to pitch this idea. I get it. But who are you to pitch the idea? I mean, how do you present yourself? Because here's the thing. You don't present very well. Has anybody ever told you that? Fancy, if you could have gotten away with it, you would have stuck Nick in a fucking coffin and buried him. And you would have shut everybody up about who Dee Dee was. Nobody's saying that Dee Dee's perfect, but you would have let everybody believe that she had Munchausen. It's not that you found out something different about the story that made you change your mind. There was a big difference in the story. I don't think you cared about that. And you know what? Nobody really thinks you cared about that, because there's messages that prove that you didn't care about that because you were so eager. Hi, Bobby. I'm a filmmaker and writer who has been following your son's case. I am currently working on a project and would like to speak to you regarding your son and his story in all of this. Our hope is to give a true and accurate telling of all events and sides to this compelling story. We are reaching out to you to give you, Nicholas, and the rest of your family the opportunity to speak to us as to what happened from your point of view. Yeah? Is that the same person that's saying, we don't need your permission to do anything and we're going to go with it? Or is it the same person that's saying, he'll never see the light of day, with you laughing with Ken about Nicholas's plight? Same person? I understand he is being transferred soon, and this is from 2019. I hope he goes somewhere decent, and I hope his appeal goes well. I worry about his terrible representation and would in some way hope that our team, I guess that's Good Wives Network, team could help in helping him get legal assistance, better legal assistance, by locating somebody through pro bono. Hey, can you get on that? Or assisting in creating a GoFundMe, which I'm really good at taking money from, but don't tell anybody. What? Huh? Allegedly and supposedly, for all intents purposes? For what? Definitely not to give to Nick, because that you could have done. Fancy, you know you could have done that, and you could have given it to Nick. You could have got his number. You could have spoken to there's so much you could have done to make things better. Hey, jail, I screwed up on Nick. Can I speak to his case manager, his social worker, his, I don't know, classification officer? Can I speak to that person? Because I'd like to try to do something to maybe put money on his book so he might be able to get a decent lawyer. See, you could have done any of this, but you're writing letters, and one letter just X's out the other letter, and all of it is about you, Fancy. So we're going to give the attention to you, Fancy, and how much you screwed this whole thing up, how much you used people as collateral. No respect, no regard, no caring, and yet you scream and yell foul when somebody tells the truth about you. Guys, that's who I think Fancy is in a nutshell. Somebody with hopes and dreams while turning everybody else's into nightmares. This is Issues with Toddy One Skip. Tell me what you think. I appreciate you guys. Be better today than you were yesterday. Not half as good as you'll be tomorrow. Always be kind. Thanks.